So I'm really excited as my guest today is Mr. Stevie Richards. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, really good, thank you. It's kind of a strange time at the moment, isn't it, with the lockdown and the world as it is?
Yeah, I'm an introvert and homebody anyway that owns a home gym and runs a podcast out of my living room. So no, it's just Thursday for me. There's no difference.
It
Nothing
looks like you
different than
got a
any
pretty
other
cool
day.
chair as well that you're you're sat on. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a gaming chair. This is from Clutch Chairs. Very interesting. They have a great charity they work with. So it's brands like that that I like to support. And as we go through the interview, I'll talk about some of the things I use and why I use them, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of go back to the very beginning, actually, which is in regards to wrestling, where your love and your passion for wrestling actually came about.
Well, I mean, I always was a wrestling fan as a child. Did I ever think that I would actually do it? Well, I don't know if any 8 or 9 or 10-year-old kid actually says that's what I'm going to do
Yeah.
or is sure that's what's going to happen. I think what really motivated me was when I was in high school and, and somebody told me that I could never do it. And that's literally where I said, I'll show you, you'll see. So that entrance theme, when that's the first words to come out of my mouth when before I come out to the ring in WWE, that was a real thing dating back to 15 years old. From
Yeah.
that very moment that someone, there's a little bit of a spiteful nature in me, as probably a lot of professional athletes or pro wrestlers or other people. So when you tell us that we cannot do something, we try 10 times harder to do that.
Why do you think someone said to you you would never do it? Was it because of the way you looked? Did they think you didn't look like a wrestler? Why do you think they kind of
Oh,
just
I
assumed
didn't.
you
Oh, dude,
didn't?
I didn't look like a wrestler at all. There was a lie. Even when I was wrestling, I didn't look like a wrestler for some time. No, I mean, imagine a 15-year-old kid who's as nerdy and kind of socially awkward as they come, kind of keeps to himself, doesn't have a body, doesn't seem to have charisma, doesn't seem to have any of these things. And you say you want to be on TV and be a pro wrestler like Hulk Hogan and all these other guys.
Yeah,
But the thing was, the beauty of wrestling was, and the reason why I knew that I could do it was because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin at a young age. I knew I could make pretend and escape and pretend to be somebody completely different. All the shackles and all the awkwardness and the shyness didn't have to inhibit me because I wasn't Michael Manna, my real name. I could be completely different in somebody else. And wrestling's great for that because you can pretend. And just think about it, as a heel, if you attack somebody with a lead pipe, any other time you'd be going to prison. But in pro wrestling, it's okay.
well, where did it go from being a fan to actually being a wrestler? How did that? Where did your kind of big break for you come about? Would it have been ECW or prior to that?
I don't think I ever had a big break. Everything that I did was pretty much the hard way, whether because I had no idea what to do next or I was going into it as not a second generation superstar or even knowing anybody in the business. I just wanted to do it. So everything for me, that awkwardness was like always there going into it. So it's never like I stumbled into doing things, even when I got my break in ECW, or not a break, I would say, because you had to earn it. You got tested
Yeah,
every night. So if you failed the test, your supposed big break ended if you didn't carry the ball. So I like that kind of pressure in a way because I was never comfortable with being content. So, being taught very old school by Raven, being guided, being, tested by the locker room in certain ways to hold my spot, things I didn't even realize until after the fact, by the way. I didn't know these things were
yeah.
happening until you look back and you're mature enough to see, oh, okay, I get it now that I'm a veteran. I get what they were trying to do.
And going in regards to ECW, what are your memories? Is that something you kind of look back to with fond memories because it was a big part of your wrestling career?
Well, I mean, like outside of today's Thursday. So outside of posting a throwback Thursday on Instagram, and that's when I look at it and I say, that's pretty cool stuff. I always try to look forward. I never look back. It sounds so cliche. Um, because a lot of guys in wrestling, a lot of people in general live in that nostalgia, rather than trying to reinvent themselves. And in my 28 plus years of wrestling, that's really what kept me on TV and kept me in companies, was when I saw something kind of running its course, I reinvented myself to repackage or do something or have a different spin on whatever I could do to still be a part of the roster. So that looking back thing never really, when someone asks me a question like you, like obviously ECW is hard to nail down, like what was that moment? Because really, my God, every single time we got to perform in front of that crowd, I knew, even that's one of the few things that I knew, Lewis, when it was happening. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is ever going to really be duplicated again, because I was watching WWF, I was watching NWA, WCW, and I said, this has a completely different feel than anything that I've ever seen before or been a part of.
And someone, when I think of ECW, I think of Raven, and again, someone who was kind of instrumental in your time in ECW because you worked together. So what was he like to work with? What's your relationship like with Raven?
Well, back then, because we were two completely different people at two completely different stages of our lives, and you've probably heard his shoot interviews and my shoot interviews talking about that. In the ring, on TV, all that stuff, our place, our characters meshed perfectly. It was a perfect storm. Off camera, I wasn't quite mature enough to know that, like, hey, you can do business and you don't have to kind of sync up and like each other or be best friends or anything like that. I wanted to get along so bad with everybody. So it kind of created a little bit of tension between us here and there. And there's, when you're around somebody and you work with somebody on TV that much, back then, it really did sometimes, spill out into arguments and fights or whatever there were. We get along great now. We've gotten along great for many years, even not too long after ECW. That's just a phase in our career. But I'll tell you this, I mean, when you bring it up, people remember, Raven and Richards. They remember the ECW run. They remember a little bit of the TNA stuff. And there's still stuff like Raven was on Impact recently.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling, and I know Raven agrees, to know that you're remembered and that people associate you with something that'll never go away. And it's not just ECW. You just remember moments. You remember characters. You remember pairings. These are pretty special things that I don't know if will exist with the current rosters today, 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah, completely different times. And like you said, when you look back at wrestlers from the 90s or the noughties, they're talked about and celebrated. And I do agree with you. I kind of look at the current roster, and maybe apart from some, I don't know if it will have the same nostalgia feel in 10, 20 years' time, and celebrate as much as you guys were.
Well, the people that you're talking about that it probably will be celebrated or remembered are the people that made their names outside of WWE. I don't think the factory grown wrestlers, maybe outside of Bray Wyatt, who wasn't, I don't know his origins, but he started really working with FCW, NXT, then WWE. The Kevin Owens of the world, the Seth Rollins, these other people that were in Ring of Honor, other places, even some people that were in Impact before they went there, like or Keith Lee and ROH. These people, I think, will be special for that because they've made their name. Like for example, I had a 9.5-year run in WWE, which was in some ways, right, the Censor was very, very high profile. Then you had a couple of little things here and there, but really nothing to speak of for the last 4 or 5 years of that. Just on TV, doing this, kind of like a analogy of like what Zack Ryder was in today's element. But I still have the ECW thing where people remember, yeah, you kind of, you've done a lot in the business. The problem with that, though, and then I've always said it, is you kind of expose the business sometimes one way or the other, because if I was able to be great there and I wasn't, I was great at one time in WWE, but all of a sudden I'm not that, there's no consistency with that, and people kind of see through it.
Originally, when you left ECW towards the later time there, were you actually planning to retire due to injury?
Yeah, my neck was, see, the thing is with my neck, it's always been an issue, but I learned to rehab it the right way. I learned to mature about my rehab process. Back then, like I said, I was just a kid trying to figure it out. And I really did. My neck injury was pretty severe, which I ended up getting a fusion. I ended up getting a lot of other surgeries for my throat and neck and vocal cords after that. So, you know, it was supposed to be that, but, you know, different things you make, different decisions you make with that. I did aggravate the injury, and it ended up being an even worse cervical injury that needed a bigger fusion surgery in the end. So there's a lot of things that, like I said, I don't look back at it, but I don't forget about those things. And I make sure that, you know, especially physically, like it's past the point, put it this way. Like, I don't even wake up in the morning and say, man, I'm too tired to work out, or I'm too sore, I'm too this and that. It's an instantaneous, this is my physical therapy, I got to go work out. And it's based off that injury right there from ECW.
Well, I mean, it was actually the same year, I believe, you actually went to WCW. Was that correct?
Yeah.
So how
Yeah,
did that actually come about? Were you just asked to go over there? Like, what conversations were had at that time?
that was to reunite with Raven. Creatively, do I know what the big plan was? No, I think just getting a bunch of guys together with Raven, and I obviously was right there on that list because of the past, you know, segments I was in. I would prove that I could get that over and get him over. So that's really all it was. I mean, there's things going on in ECW with money, and those were the birth pangs of that. Like, I wasn't owed any money from Paul. There wasn't checks bouncing at that time, but we weren't really making any money. But there was a money element to me wanting to go to WCW at that time, more so on the ECW side than the WCW side.
And like you said, you know, you had a quite a decent run in WWE, and I love, because that was when I watched it, and I love you were one of my favorite people on there because you had the ability to have fun. You were one of the greatest heels in Right to Censor, and had the ability to really wind up the crowd. So when they came to you and said, "We've got this idea of a faction, Right to Censor," what were your thoughts about it, and what conversations were had in regards to the members that were going to be in it? Because you were obviously notably the leader of the group.
Well, they didn't have that pitched to me. This was supposed to be a 2 to 3 week run. This was essentially, I think, it was a rib or a parody of the Parent Television Council. And also, it was a rib and a test for me to cut my hair. That's all essentially, I think that's all it was. Jamie Morris, one of the writers at the time, and he was, we were friendly but not friends yet. He wrote with me the Right to Censor promos that turned it from a political thing into a cult. Now, adding the people they added, I think that was just a way to get out of trouble with the Parent Television Council, because two of them, Val and Godfather, needed to be repackaged at least temporarily, because that was part of the problem with the ads being lost and stuff like that. But no, this was supposed to be basically a very bland political faction. And Jamie Morris, I give him all the credit in the world for, he actually has a YouTube channel, Jacob Israel, which is a far cry from the WWE writing stuff, but it's fascinating content in my opinion. Jamie turned that into a cult type, David Koresh, Charles Manson, whatever, you know, analogy you want to use. That's what he turned that into. So, and then I just helped along with it to put my personality and spin on that.
Do you have a standout favorite moment for your time in the faction, like a storyline or something that always stands out to you that you remember as soon as you say Right to Censor?
Probably when we thought that the Dudleys joined us on SmackDown. And you know, what's funny is you won't hear many people say that because I came out on the losing end of that segment, but it was good business because they kept me so strong and people were joining and joining and joining. And to have the Dudleys come out in the shirt and tie and then turn on me and then on all of us and then put me through a table was a huge moment.
And why did because again, I've noticed it with a lot of factions. They run their course after a couple of years, but they really do have legs to keep going. And that was one that I was surprised disbanded so soon. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think it was the right time and the right decision to make?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But that is a political struggle that I wasn't a part of between Jamie and another writer who didn't like Jamie and didn't like the idea of, because it wasn't his idea. I don't know the exact. I know it was some clashing between Jamie and the other writer who was the head writer at the time. Jamie left to do his own thing because he didn't need to deal with that. And also, what happens in wrestling is, in WWE at least, do good, but don't do too good. So you have to think, and I'm just going to you can go look who was the top heel at the time. And then when I became sort of, I think, right up there as one of the top heels, then I wasn't figured in. I wasn't figured in because I wasn't one of their people. It's a very cliquish, political, who you know, not what you know type thing. So I'm fine with that. I mean, I accomplished all I could on my own. I went much further in the company and stayed there longer by not playing those games, which I'm very proud of. And I'm not like I wasn't like some kind of radical, protester of the whole thing. I chose to put my energy into working hard, keep myself in the best shape that I could, and saving as much money as I can for post WWE life.
I mean, when you look at it from a fan's point of view, you were in the faction, and as you just said, one of the greatest talkers on the mic, and the ability to wind up a crowd. You played the heel so well.
Oh, I was? Oh, thank you. I thought you were going to mention somebody else's name.
But I mean, you would have just naturally assumed that after that, you individually would have had a push as a heel. But it seemed to be that you kind of went on the B shows, and they didn't use you as, personally, I think they could have. So what are your thoughts on that? Did you ever feel kind of, why am I being put on the B shows? I've just spent a couple of years working hard, delivered, and now I'm doing this. Did that ever cross your mind or not?
No, not really, because there's two different elements to that. The first one is that I've been on every spot on the card, even by this point. So I'm not going to act like a mark and say, now money wise, it's like, oh, okay. But I wasn't essentially, let's be blunt about it. I wasn't really getting paid what I should have been getting paid for the spot because I wasn't figured in politically, or, it all came back to me later on in life. So don't worry. You know what I mean? It's whatever was a disadvantage then turned out to be an advantage later for all the positive reasons as we go down further in my career. The other thing was that, it's funny about my WWE run. I was 262 pounds, had a 44-inch waist, was in the worst shape of my life, got the biggest push of my life, which I really was all on me. I should have been in better shape. Something happened one night. Same thing with Val. When we put the shirt and tie on, I don't know what the hell happened. With me, it was just eating a lot of food and not working out at that time. But when I got in the best shape of my life and I stayed in constant, really good shape, that's when you said, essentially, I was on all the B shows, which once again, I looked at it and I said, everybody's acting like they do not want to be on Sunday Night Heat. I'm just going to say, it's my show. I'm the GM. I'm going to turn it into mine. They don't watch it anyway, so what do I care? So, and they didn't watch it, and we got away with it for like 7 months before we got caught. That. It's 100% true. They had no idea we were shooting pre-tapes. Myself, Coach, Al Snow were producing these pre-tapes, and they were going, and everybody was all on board. And Stephanie, Hunter, Vince, Johnny Ace had never seen one of the things because nobody even bothered to watch the show.
That's crazy. And like, it actually became known, wasn't it? Stevie Night Heat.
Stevie Night. I walked around with tights that said Stevie Night Heat, and nobody ever said a word.
What was Vince McMahon like? What were your dealings with him? Is he an approachable guy?
Well, he's approachable when he approaches you.
Okay.
I don't know, man. He's an intimidating guy. I can't quite say I had that many bad encounters with him. I can't even say I had that many encounters, period, with him. I would say hello to him, say goodbye to him, thank him for the opportunity every so often. But really, I mean, one time he gave me a compliment on my physique, which was like, holy God, that's, you know what I mean? Because Vince is about the if he or Hunter or somebody had given me a compliment on my body, it's like, man, that's really cool. No matter what you think of them personally or anything like that, those guys are big bodybuilding, and for them to even utter a compliment about it, and I'm not really the big bodybuilding type they would prefer, but for him to say one time, man, you're looking good, kid. It's like, cool. That's all I need to hear. And run away before he says, but.
Who were you personally kind of closest to in regards to friendships backstage? Was there a couple of people that you were really solid with in regards to friendships?
Well, early on, it was Crash Holly before, up until the time when he passed. And then Kane, Glenn Jacobs, and I traveled together a lot, played video games a lot. D-Lo, Charles Robinson, Rosie, God bless his soul, too. It was pretty much like people who like to work out or play video games. That was our big thing. We played Madden. We played Ghost Recon. The funny part was that we were so into it. Glenn would bring the walkie-talkies. Back in that day, you had to actually call up Newegg. Remember, Newegg.com? Do you have that over there?
No.
It's like a B&H Photo or something like that, or a tech company. And I had 3 75-foot, I think they were 75-foot Ethernet cable things cut, and then the Ethernet things put on them. And we'd carry our original Xboxes, and between 3 hotel rooms, we would wire the Xboxes together for a LAN party and play Ghost Recon co-op. That's kind of stuff.
That.
Yeah, you're expecting a drug story or some kind of stripper story. No, that's not what we do,
And you hear it in various shoot interviews. I don't normally kind of speak to people about it, but was there anybody that you had beef with as such, or you just didn't get on with?
There are people that you just didn't fit in with. Let me put it that way. I don't quite fit in with a lot of things, even in the fitness world where I'm at now, even in the tech world or any other. I never quite fit in, which is good because I'm an individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you can kind of do your own thing. But wrestling is very much like high school. It's a high school cafeteria in a lot of ways. So, I liked just being in the business. I like going to work and doing all these things, but I didn't like a lot of the games that were played. So I would avoid all that stuff. So whether I had heat or not or whatever. Now, you need to be around people. Familiarity breeds contempt for you to clash with them. And I limited my exposure as much as possible to as many people as I could. That's not a knock on anybody. That's just like, dude, we're on the road so much. I'm not going to, I see everybody enough. It's cool.
And when you left WWE, that was it must have been a daunting experience because for so long that's been your bread and butter. It paid your bills. So when you left there, were you kind of a bit anxious, or were you just excited for the next chapter that awaited you?
Well, as an independent contractor, you're always anxious. Even with my brands and my businesses and what I do here now, I'm always anxious every day when you wake up. But it's the scariest and the best feeling in the world when you know it's up to you. In WWE for the 9.5 years, sometimes it was up to me, but sometimes I had to rely on the machine. The machine determined how much money I would make every year. So when they released me, it was almost a relief. You knew it was coming. Like the people that got released, outside of a few, you had to know it was coming sometime. Maybe not during the coronavirus pandemic, but you knew you were going to get released sooner or later. So you have to prepare for that. I tried to prepare for that. I started a YouTube channel and a podcast under my real name for technology because I had a great passion for technology, just like fitness. And I like to teach. I used to have a class or like a workshop I would teach on podcasting and social media back in Connecticut. So I like to do all these things. The funny part is I thought I had prepared to kind of like, all right, when I leave WWE, I'll be able to get a job. I'll be able to do this. And I wasn't even thinking about wrestling. I was thinking about going, I need to get a steady paycheck for a change. I need to not be on the road. I need to do something to settle down and switch gears. But it was extremely difficult going from jobs during the credit crunch during that period. You're so young, you probably don't even remember. But there was a credit crunch where a lot of schools and businesses lost their loans and funding, so they had to cut back. A lot of what's happening now, but not because of the pandemic. Then going to TNA, and money wasn't great there, and I was, trying to get an opportunity for a better deal, and there's different struggles up until, Lewis, I would say probably in the past 18 months to 24 months, which was what, 12 years removed from WWE, that I finally feel like, wow, I have a little bit of control of my income. Now, the important thing was in WWE, and then before that, I tried to save as much money as I could. I bought houses, or I bought a car or two here and there, but I got rid of those quickly to try to lower my monthly, bills and stuff like that. And I really try to live as frugally as possible. Long story short, as far as the money thing, if you've never heard of a guy named Dave Ramsey, I live by a lot of those mantras. He's on YouTube. He has a podcast. Very easy stuff, like very easy things to try to live financially by. And my wife and I try to do that and try to stay ahead, and just simple things that might seem simple, but they're extremely difficult when you're a wrestler, an entertainer, or an athlete, because you feel like you have to live that lifestyle. Like you're dressed like you have more money than me.
This is just for.
I would have dressed up if I knew.
Obviously, after your time in WWE, you went, like a lot of wrestlers, you went over to TNA. But I know now, from watching some of your videos as well, you just seem you enjoy what you're doing. You're doing fitness, so I'd love you to talk to us about what you do now, and about your business.
I love it because, I'll give you another example about that too, because I put up a video about the people that got released, and I told my story a little bit. So more, kind of like segueing from what I just said to then, to the fitness brand, Stevie Richards Fitness. Technology and fitness, and even wrestling, are wonderful things because they're always changing. You can never get bored with them. You can do every single workout program and iteration of it, and technique and style and, schedule for the rest of your life, and still not touch all of them. Technology is always changing, unfortunately, because I got to keep laying money out for that. And creatively from wrestling, technology, and fitness, I can do all these things and create my own brand. So it's really awesome. And that's why Stevie Richards Fitness was created basically out of necessity. I was injured. I mean, it's well documented. I can't, some fitness people try to tell these tall tales about, this is what I was, and this, dude, there's video documentation all over YouTube of all my injuries. I've been injured probably more than any wrestler that's wrestled in the past 20 years. Would you agree with that?
From what I've read, yeah.
Okay, 25 years, say back to 97. I've been injured a lot. And what I considered to be a curse back then, like, why do I keep getting hurt? Why do I have such bad luck? And like any normal person, when I started working with the brand, with Stevie Richards Fitness, or actually before that, when I started working out with resistance bands, I was like, well, this is great. This will keep me in shape. Like even in WWE, when I was on TV, when I have an elbow injury, a knee injury, this injury, a lower back injury, and I couldn't hinge my hips or pick up a weight or pick up dumbbells, the bands were what I used all the time. People made fun of me for it. So it's just, fast forward, trying to monetize my life experience and what I considered to be a curse at the time and make it into a blessing. And then on top of that, like I said before, it's been so many years to turn the corner to find my niche after wrestling. I didn't sell one program for 18 months after I launched the website. I may have sold one. Yeah. That was it. And it was somebody that knew me and kind of probably felt sorry for me. Now the program was good, but I didn't know how to promote. I just didn't know how to get the message across. It was a mixed message because I was dipping in and out of wrestling. I was dipping in and out of the fitness. I was trying to be all these different things to everybody. And I was kind of resisting the I was kind of resisting a label. That's what I've always tried to do throughout my life, is go against stereotypes. But my wife told me one day, like, what's so bad about being the resistance band guy? And it just clicked. And that's all. And the benefit of it, and focusing on doing that and helping people and reaching out to people that needed help and trying to serve others as best as I could. It just blossomed. Like in the past year and a half, it's really getting an orthopedic surgeon to endorse it, is really cool too. And other medical professionals and then other wrestlers doing it is cool. But regular people who never touched a dumbbell or a band or anything are able to do the program. See, that's the thing. I tried for ego. And I know I'm going off a little bit of a tangent. I still don't quite have the message down. I still go I don't have sound bites down, but because I'm passionate, I could talk forever about stuff that's really.
Got some here.
There you go.
Today.
Let me see that.
I bought some bands today.
Those are pretty thick, man.
It was after looking at your website actually and seeing the before and after pictures, which are incredible, and the stories that people were telling. When you see it in front of you and you see the progress in actually a short amount of time, it just, especially with a lockdown at the moment, there's no better time to get on there and look at the programs.
So you just condensed what I said in about 30 seconds. So you should be my pitch man. You did a much better job. This pandemic, I never wanted the business to be booming this way. This is the worst way I've ever wanted it, but it has been really inspiring to see people that don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, that are still saying, well, at least I can work out, I can get healthy, I can eat right, I can work out at home. And for me to be a part of that, that's really, really cool. You talked about the before and after pictures. That's another thing. It takes time. Yeah. You got to have people doing the stuff, and you got to offer something for them to do that as far as support. And that was the other thing that made it different too, is I supported myself. There's a lot of fitness brands that kind of have, obviously if we grew to a certain point, I would have to have people helping me with this, but I wouldn't have those people making pretend they're me. And a lot of fitness brands do that, because you obviously want to connect with the person that created it, right? You don't want to feel like you're talking to just a customer support agent. You want to talk to the guy or the girl that created it. So I appreciate that, man. Did you get the programs?
I haven't got the programs yet. I was looking at them.
I'm going to send them to you. You tell me what you want through email. I'll send you what we have, and you can review it. I want you to be honest, though. I want you to be honest. I want honest feedback from everybody, because I want to make it better. I know it's not perfect, but that's what I'm striving for, and I always like to get better.
And I was speaking to some friends, who love wrestling, and every time we talk about wrestlers that have finished wrestling and gone into fitness, the two names that always crop up are yourself and DDP. And I think what people love and buy into is the fact that it's you that has put this program together, someone with so many years experience, and it's easy to trust you because you've been there, you've done that, and you can tell that you've really lived this. And I think that's why it's important for people to head over to your programs and have a look at them, because it's trusted. There's years and years behind it.
I appreciate that. And the technology background enabled me to create them and learn how to edit. I've been editing videos, the PDFs that I created with the programs, and all the stuff that I've done has been myself. My wife proofread my awful grammar and spelling, but outside of that, it's been a one-man thing, and it's a beautiful thing that you don't have to count on other people to do it. And that's another thing I put out on YouTube a lot. I have no secrets about my workflow. I have no secrets about what I do. You ask me, how do you do this? I'm going to show you. You got to put the work in and do it. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll tell you exactly what apps I use. I'll tell you how I do the workflow. I'll tell you what I learned, all that stuff. I'm pretty open about that stuff, because I have enough confidence to know that I'm going to try my best to do what I can, and I'm always moving forward. And I hated that in wrestling. I hated the fact that people would always, like, you come back and you want feedback on your match, and they'd be like, oh yeah, it was cool, and walk away. And there was mistakes made, and you want to get better, and nobody seems like they really want to do that in wrestling. And that's why I never want to do that to anybody else.
it's your fitness plan. So just for people out there, what do you actually get, you know, within the plan? So if people sign up, do they get interaction with you? Is there support along the way?
Well, the support is via email and via a closed Facebook group that the actual clients created. So the people that do the program created the support group on their own. My support is limited to email. Sometimes if people are really having trouble, I'll send videos or I'll put up on my YouTube channel different ways to do things. So that way anybody that's having the problem will be able to get that kind of tip or trick on how to use it. There's different programs. You have the 12-week program, which is essentially, I call it the beginner program, although all the programs and videos can be scaled and modified as much as you want. So there's modifications for everything. The 12-week is the best one to go with. If that's too much for you, we have a chair workout video too. We also have the 16-week program, which obviously 4 more weeks for all 4 new phases and a little bit more challenging. So if you've ever done, say, the basic like start of bodybuilding or anything, where you choose your rep range and stuff like that. So there's a little bit more where you can choose your own adventure. But if you've never chosen your own adventure, go with the 12-week. And the cool part about all the stuff, at least with the programs and the chair workout video, is you get bonus content with it. So with the 12-week program, you get a free HIIT workout video, which sounds intimidating, but it's a very basic, intense, wow, I don't want to use the word intense. It's a basic interval training thing to get you warmed up, to get your heart rate up, but it's very safe, very low impact. The 16-week program includes that HIIT workout video, but also a circuit training video that you're going to do in phase 4 as a bonus. So there's lots of different stuff. I tried to make them the most affordable, accessible programs out there, which it is. It's affordable, $15 for the 12-week, $25 for the 16-week. The videos are $13, and then you get the email support from me, which, you know, I try to make it accessible to have everybody to have that help. So it's funny. I've talked to a few business people, and you can imagine what they say when I tell them the prices that I'm charging for these programs. There are a lot of people. Have you ever looked at these online fitness programs, these PDFs with no support?
Yeah.
$97, $147. I mean, God bless them if they're getting that money, but my goodness, I mean, that's not, I'm trying to do it from my business model and the way I look at it. There's 8 billion people in the world, if not more. Hey, I want volume. I want a lot of people to be doing my programs, a lot of people to have that. And, you know, that's the way I look at it. And it's worked out pretty well so far.
I got to say, I'm loving you've got like an arcade machine behind you there.
I do. That's the Retromania.
That.
That's the Retromania wrestling arcade thing with the, you see my picture right there on the side. Wow. Do you know why it's in here?
No.
Because we ran out of space in the home gym. So if you check out my home gym tours, we actually had to move it because we got a second power rack in the home gym. And yeah, Retromania Wrestling is coming out in July. My good friend Michael Herman, I'm actually helped test a game, which was a lot of fun. And it's going to be available for Xbox, PS4, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. So really cool stuff. If you like Fire Pro Wrestling, or you long for the days of actual, you remember WrestleFest? You're not old enough.
No.
WrestleFest was an arcade game that came out in '91. Yeah, and it was like, if you look up WrestleFest, this is basically the successor, the sequel to WrestleFest. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. It looks like you got so much cool technology in your house.
We do. I have a very, very understanding and supportive wife. And we have a home gym. You know, the blessing was that we had a lot of people laughed when we turned our entire main living area into a gym. Talking about the living room and the sunroom has a strength. The strength area is in the living room. If you see my home gym tours, you'll see it. And then we needed to move the podcasting stuff in. This is the actual second bedroom where the home gym used to be. Now it's the podcasting studio, but it's also our living room. And of course, the arcade machine had to leave the home gym. So it's cool to be able to do a lot of different things. And it's great to have someone like my wife that can to be supportive and excited about that stuff. And I'm excited about the stuff she's doing. We've gotten into self-sufficiency over the past few years, a lot more, growing our own food, doing our own stuff, making natural medicine like tinctures, things like that. She makes my, Ben Gay muscle rub stuff before you work out. We make our own.
Wow.
So we save on that. So it costs us essentially almost nothing to do that. We make our own apple cider vinegar.
Really
These are the
good.
kinds of things, especially now, that are super important.
In regards to, obviously, we've spoke about, the fitness that you're doing now. Are you completely away from wrestling?
It would appear so right now. I mean, you never say never. I'm going to turn up the light here so I can get another cool thing when I have a remote light. Wrestlers never retire. They just stop getting booked or they stop taking bookings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's always still in there, that kind of want to do it now and then, to kind of dip back in for it for a bit.
Well, I don't know about physically, because I can work the matches. I recently had a match at Wildcat Sports back in November against PJ Hawk, the kid who jumped off the mall thing.
Yeah.
You remember that? That was after me. We weren't a part of it. I would never let him do that. but we went 15, 20 minutes. We worked a great match. We had a good little hardcore match around the bill. We worked a very good match psychologically. We had good action. I moved at a good pace. I can still perform at that high level. That's not the problem, Lewis. The problem is the recovery time. The recovery time, and how will that affect my fitness brand if I need to produce content, if I need to create? I really do still make money with my looks to a certain degree. So I got to be very protective of that. And also, I don't know if you ever listen to Vince Russo we have a podcast together. We do the review shows and stuff. To leave the house and the amount of time that you have to invest in driving to the airport, getting on the plane, getting the rental car, getting to the hotel, finding the gym, eating well on the road. Then you got to get to the show. Then you got to work. Then you're getting out very late. I get early morning flights back or to the next town. It's a very, very tough life. And after you get to a certain age, you sort of weigh, what is my time worth as opposed to what I'm getting paid for this? It's more about quality over quantity at this point.
Well, Stevie, I've got to say, I'm so grateful that you've given us your time here today for the UK fans to talk about your career, but what you're doing now. Is there anything else that you're working on that we've not spoke about?
I didn't hear what you said. Is there any what?
Is there any other projects that you're working on that we've not spoke about?
I jinxed Zoom when I said it never craps out and flaked out right there. Well, what I do is, I do the Raw SmackDown review with Vince Russo and Mcmahon. Then I do the Conspiracy Horseman with 3 other professional wrestlers, where we definitely discuss COVID-19 and other things going on in the world. And also the Friday Locker Room with Mcmahon as well. Podcasting is a big part of my week. Producing videos for the YouTube channel is a big part of my week as well. Those are continuing projects. Also, Ben and myself are writing a podcast book for beginners on how you can start your own podcast. So that's going to be an ebook and also an interactive iBook. So it'll have video, audio, graphs, cool stuff like that. That's how I created the fitness programs. I used iBooks Author from Apple. So it's a pretty cool piece of software if you have a Mac. Other than that, WrestleMania Wrestling is coming out in July, so I'm going to start doing more promotion for that. And I'm always thinking about the next workout program to help somebody. So I've been experimenting in the lab over there, trying to, not the actual lab. I'm a wrestler. People hear lab, they think of something else. I call the home gym the lab. We're not actually going to a lab and doing anything. I've never done anything like that. So, but how old are you, by the way?
27.
I should have asked you that before I was mentioning like games from 1991 and all this other shit.
Yeah, 27.
Yeah, you're just a baby. I'm going to be 49.
But again, that's the thing. When you look at the stuff that you do on your YouTube videos, the shape that you're in, and for anyone is kind of a reason to get fit. When you can see someone, like you said, you're nearly 49 and you're in the shape that you're in, it's just incredible. Absolutely.
But it's not impossible. I'm not an action figure. that's what my wife always points out to me too, because everybody, I look, you got to think how my mind from being around the Triple H's and the Scott Steiners and the you know, anybody who has those types of physiques, and yeah, and it's like it's certainly a warped perspective on my part. But when my wife says to me, listen, your body and what you're doing and your physique and the kind of shape you're in is more in tune with who you want to sell the programs to. And it's you. You're not, you know, trying not to get sued for saying something. You're not. I've never done anything, put it that way.
No, I mean, how can people find you online? Because I know you've got your website, but I know you're on all the social media platforms as well. So what are your names on there?
I'm more on Instagram at Stevie Richards, and that's where I put up a lot of fitness stuff. I think my Instagram, if you haven't checked it out, Lewis, if you have, you know that it's a mix between photo shoots with my cats that are always failures because they're always trying to get out of my arms. Obviously the fitness stuff and promoting stuff. And then I mix in fitness memes from movies like The Dark Knight Rises. Today was Jerry Maguire, Help Me, Help You, talking about people putting the work in. I try to put a little spin on humor on it. And also, like, what I do is, like, affiliate income as well as Stevie Richards Fitness. I was saying before about the bands. When people graduate or they want to buy equipment, that's why I have an affiliate code with ForceUSA.com, Stevie5, Stevie the number 5. And we do have some dealers out in UK. I don't know if you can use that code, but if you can, you want to save some money, get in touch with me, StevieRichardsFitness@gmail.com, and I might be able to make that code active overseas.
Wow.
To get you some savings there too.
That sounds perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been brilliant. I've wanted to get you on for a while, and it's we planned it for the last week.
It's my fault. I'm sorry about that, man.
No, honestly, it's so just looking at your cool little pad and everything that you've got. It's kind of like every person's dream. You've got the cool chair, the game, you know, behind you. Looks like you got a nice TV is on the side there.
And it's all affordable. I got all the cheapest version of everything. I absolutely do. I say it all the time. I live a blessed life. I'm really grateful. You hear a lot of wrestlers that move as they go on that have a completely different perspective. I don't choose to look at it that way, and I can't. I wake up every morning just realizing how blessed and lucky I am to have the life I do. It's not glamorous, but man, it's perfect for me. I really have a lot of fun.
Well, you come across as such a nice, humble guy, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Same here, man.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank